this one.
What?
This one is missing the coin. They always use a coin. The coin, always with a huge burn mark around it. And then there's the clean 2-inch incision on the carotid artery. Who's ever been doing this has been at it for a while. So why is she
So sloppy. What are you thinking?
Did fight back. Maybe she interrupted them?
You just saw a clip from Paranormal Unit. That is an upcoming show of which I think the first episode has been filmed, or have all the episodes?
No, just the first and part of the 6th.
Okay, so just first and part of the 6th, and sitting next to me is one of the stars of that show, Ellen Engelson. We're very happy to have her here.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. So it's been a while since you and I have had a chance to really talk.
Yes, it has.
You worked on Dalwa, of course, and since then it's mostly just been in passing at different events. We've seen each other. So I'm excited to talk with you again today.
Excited to see you.
Yeah. And so the first thing I want to start with is just sort of your career in acting, where you got started, and how you ended up here today.
Okay. Well, it started in the 90s. My husband would laugh at me because he always says all my stories are from the 90s. But I started taking classes. I was just intrigued. My salon, where I worked, my full-time job, was next to an agency. And I thought it would be fun to just start taking some classes. So I did that and mainly got involved in commercial work through a client of mine. And I did a couple of theater projects as well. And then my mom passed. And I really didn't do a lot until 2014. Is when I really took everything pretty seriously. I started taking more classes, got involved with student films, and also got involved in theater, and it just kind of took off from there.
Awesome. So how many projects would you say you do in like a given year, or have been for the
Well,
past few?
I happened to look on my IMDb page just to see how many projects I've actually done, and I have done 44 films since 2014, which I was surprised because I was thinking I'd probably done 20, but yeah, 44.
Wow, awesome. So obviously as an actor, you want to be versatile, but I have to imagine there's some roles that attract you more than others, or some roles you like playing more than others. I know some people who really like playing villains, some people who really like being in comedies. Do you have any kind of preferences to the roles that you play?
I find that when I'm doing theater, I love doing comedy, but I particularly like doing drama when I'm doing film. And I like a character, you know, that has a little bit of an edge, that's complex, you know, where you can really do a deep dive and try to figure her out. But I don't feel like there are a lot of roles in film. I don't really think I get to choose. It is kind of whatever comes my way. If there's a role in my age range and if it piques my interest, you know, then I'll audition for it. But I do like comedic, dramatic roles. You know, I just love acting, so whatever I can get.
Yeah, so that's kind of interesting that you prefer comedy and theater and drama and film. Like, why do you think that is?
Because I think you're spending so much time, you know, rehearsing and with these people. You know, you're spending 2 months practicing, unlike film. And so, you know, I feel like it's just more lighthearted. It's just easier, you know, instead of being dragged down, you know, for 2 months in, you know, a serious dramatic role. It's fun to be childlike and play, you know, I like to play.
So that I also think it's interesting to hear from actors the difference between theater acting and
Mm-hmm.
film acting overall. Is there kind of a difference in terms of atmosphere or feeling when you're doing the performance? Like,
Yeah, I think there's a big difference. A lot of the films that I do are short films. So you're on set, for a weekend. I have done a couple of features, but usually it's short-lived. With theater, it's 2 months at least preparing, 4 days a week. So, and I think with theater, you get more of that instant gratification because you're performing for an audience. And I think with film, if you make a mistake, you can start over.
Mm-hmm.
Theater, you have to get it right.
right.
And with film, I think the gratification, I think, comes when you see yourself, on screen.
Mm-hmm.
Because as you know, you don't film in order,
Right.
typically.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes you don't really get that, oh my gosh, I did do a good job in that. You don't really see it.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say...
Is there a different dynamic, too, between the directors of theater and the directors of film? Because in theater, the director obviously has to do everything up front, because then once the performance is underway, they're not going to step out there and
Right.
say, do that again or say it
Yeah,
differently. Whereas
exactly.
in film, obviously you do multiple takes until the director's happy with it. Do you see a difference sort of in that dynamic? Do you have more freedom with one versus the other? Or?
I would say you have more freedom in film. I feel like many of the projects that I've been on, and I don't know about you, Jennifer, but I don't feel like there's a lot of rehearsal. It's like you're given your lines, you memorize, and you hope when you come to set that there's chemistry between you and your partner, scene partner. So and the director, sometimes there's a director that will give you direction, other times not. Some directors know exactly what they want and will direct you. But what I found in theater, no, they usually have a clear idea of what they want, and there's blocking that is involved as well. So it's a little bit more complex, and you have to also be bigger on stage as opposed to film. You kind of have to pull it all back because the camera's focusing, closely on your face.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so Ellen, have you ever found that on certain film sets, you're actually just having to kind of take control and direct yourself and be like, okay, how about if I do this? Should I play this character this way, or what would you, I
Right.
find myself doing that a lot, especially with younger directors.
Absolutely.
Not you, Alex.
Yeah, not Alex.
But,
No, I find it to be true. Yeah, sometimes I just would like a little bit direction. I mean, I can come up with what I have in mind for my character, but I do like it when a director has a clear vision of what they're looking for.
right.
Because, yeah, I could take it any which way.
Right. But on the other hand, it is nice if you
There
are
is a-
given the freedom
There is an
to
element of
just
freedom.
kind of take charge, and especially when you write yourself, or if you want to kind of make the character your own, it is nice to have that freedom, which I found Alex, gave me a lot of freedom with that. So that's great. But yeah,
Yes.
you definitely want the director to have a vision and to know what he wants and to be able to let you know, if that's particularly what he wants to see on screen or not.
Right. Or you want some feedback, how was that? I'd love to hear from my director, that was brilliant. Well, of course, if it wasn't, they're not going to say it, but at least encourage you.
Right.
Yeah, so that kind of plays into a conversation that I was really interested in having with you, which was sort of, after I had screened Dalwa for people, a lot of comments I got back, maybe not a lot, but a consistent comment that I heard was that it was really cool to see characters and opportunities for women, say 35, 40 plus years old, in major speaking roles and actually have sort of an emotional arc to them. And I didn't write Dalwa with that express purpose of like checking off boxes or anything like that. I just wrote it as I saw it, but it made me more aware in looking at like a lot of the casting calls that come through Facebook or wherever I'm seeing them, that yeah, I see consistently like 18 to 25-year-old actresses are always in high demand or always main characters, and then either female characters that are older, like 40 plus, they're either supporting characters that are just filler, or the roles don't exist at all. Have you seen sort of that scarcity at all, or am I just like...
No, I think that there is some ageism in the industry. I think it's also universal, in every job market. But yeah, I have noticed that. It's frustrating because, when you look on Facebook or Twin Cities Cinematics, you are exactly right. You see more roles for the 25 to 35-year-old age group. And I guess the writers and directors, producers are young. So they write about what they know. So I get it to some degree. But that was what was so great about Dawa. Yes, you were inclusive, and you brought in a lot of older actors. And I wish there was more of that, because, lately I've been looking and I haven't seen much in my age range, and it is frustrating.
Yeah, so you kind of tapped into, something I've been thinking about recently, which is like, yeah, you do see a lot of younger writers and directors, or male writers and directors, and going into what Jennifer was saying about the freedom I allow my actors, is I allow that freedom to some degree because if you buy into the old adage of write what you know, well, I don't know the experience of a woman really as far as what I've experienced. I don't know the experience, especially of a woman that's 20, 30 years older than me.
Right.
And so I sort of have to allow you to fill in the blanks where I can't when I'm writing. But yeah, I think, it's just easier for a lot of younger writers to just not even try to write those roles if they know they can write a more nuanced, younger role. But do you find that the roles you do find that come your way are sort of nuanced, or do you feel like there's a lot of roles for that age range that are just filler roles, supporting roles that don't really allow you to have a tremendous...
I can honestly say, and I'm lucky, I have had some really juicy, good film roles. Is it consistent? No. But I have had some really, really good roles. And yes, and I've had some fillers, but most of the films that I have done have been, not lead or supporting. So that's been nice. And then in theater as well, some smaller roles, some lead roles. But I've just noticed for the film competitions is where, and I know those, I think people like to work with their friends and who they know.
Yeah.
So in that genre, especially Z-Fest, it's hard to find a role. I haven't done Z-Fest in a couple of years, and that's okay.
Yeah. Would you like to
I would like to. I put my name out there. I want to do it. I think it's fun. But it's not the end of the world if I don't.
Yeah. Well, that also plays into something that I guess wasn't on my plan to talk to you about, but something that is really important to me is this idea that, people just find their friends that they make films with over and over and over again. And it's been a goal of mine to basically, with every new project I make, try to include a decent amount of new people that I haven't worked with before.
Right.
And so, I see that all the time too, is like people use the same actors over and over again, and it really doesn't allow room for actors to work with other directors and directors to get the experience working. And I feel like you miss out on really a lot of talent. Like you were a very talented actress, miss out on that if you don't open yourself up to working with new people.
Right.
So-
And I think there's always, especially in the local film community, I feel like there's always like an it girl or an it guy that is getting a lot of the roles. And, you know, like I said, I get it. It happens. I've seen it happen over the last 10 years, and, you know, that's just the way that it works.
Mm.
But that's why you have to make your own content.
Is that something that you're moving into, is writing and directing? yours?
Not writing, but how Paranormal came about
Mhm.
is I was with a group of friends, and we wanted to be in the lead. We wanted to be in a lead role. And we thought, well, let's make something. Let's do it. And so I found a script on Stage 32, and I brought it to Brian Michaels and Kelly Lamperdash and David Mayer, and they looked at it. They kind of revamped it, turned it into a web series, and there are 4 older women leads. So that's kind of how that came about.
Yeah, and I thought that was really interesting. Is you're also kind of playing a character, because I think you play a detective.
I
right?
played Detective Williams, yes.
And detectives, especially in the lead roles, you tend not to see as much as women. So, you know, was that refreshing to be able to play kind of a?
And she's a
Char-
badass.
Yeah.
Female detective.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So.
Yeah, she's troubled. She lost her husband in the line of duty, and who was also a cop. So she starts depending on drugs and alcohol to get by.
Mhm.
And so there's a lot of dimension. I don't think we've really scratched the surface of the characters yet.
Mhm.
But yeah, she's a badass. She's got an attitude. She's got an edge. She's fun to play. So yeah.
So, like, when you're, I've always wondered this, because as a director mostly, I pull from a lot of influences, other directors in cinema that I've seen throughout the history of cinema. Do actors pull from performances they've seen, or have the same kind of influence from actresses or actors that they've seen on screen, or are you sort of just your own entity?
I think I have a tendency to do that more in theater,
Okay.
because you can usually find the play on YouTube, and I like to see how another actor does it. But that's after I've already developed my character. I typically don't like to do that. I want to have an idea of my own, and then it's kind of fun to see where the differences are and compare. It would, you know, I suppose it would depend on what kind of role I get. I mean, if I'm, you know, let's say if I'm, playing a drug dealer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't know a lot about that, but I would have to do, I would have to do some research, and maybe I'd watch a film that, you know, portrays a drug dealer and kind of get a feel for that.
Yeah.
There was a series with Ellen Engelson.
1 second. Is that dead?
This one died. I don't know why, because the battery was fully charged. So, all right, continue on.
Where were we?
All right. So you were in the middle of talking about your experience as a drug dealer, and
Oh,
how that's
yeah.
helped you. No, I just
Yeah, my
kidding.
experience as a drug dealer, right.
No, but the idea that you're, you
Yeah.
know, taking roles that you don't have a lot of association
Yeah,
with.
exactly. Because I think a lot of the characters that I take on, you know, are always a part of me. You know, it's Ellen playing this character or becoming this character. So if I didn't know a lot about a certain role or how to portray a character, I would definitely do more research and watch other actors.
Okay. But so you're more about the individual performances as opposed to like an actor that you consistently watch and say, I like the way they do things.
Well, I do I mean, I have my favorites of
Yeah.
actors out there that I
Like who?
love. Kate Blanchett, no matter what she does. I mean, she's amazing. She's a character actor, and she can become anyone, and she's yeah, extremely gifted, I think. So,
Okay. Yeah, Kate Blanchett's great.
Yeah.
I love her. Yeah, we talked about Paranormal Unit. But I kind of see you popping up all over the place. Do you have any projects in the work? I know you said, that idea developed out of, you getting involved on the front end. Are you doing anything else like that, or?
Well, there's going to be another episode shoot,
Yeah.
right? Like, yeah,
We-
talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, we're going to shoot another episode, hopefully this spring. We're about to do some crowdfunding. I just recently set that up. So hopefully we can shoot episode 2 this spring, and possibly 3, I'm hoping. So we'll have to see.
Yeah, it was fun. I was brought on
Yeah.
a little bit later as a producer. So I was on a few of the shoots, and that was great. That was a good time. So I'm excited about
You
it.
did a great job too, by the way.
Oh, thanks. You weren't there that weekend. That was
But I heard. But I heard.
my weekend at the park. Yeah.
With the children, yes.
Yeah.
So it was kind of interesting. I went to that screening / fundraiser with the first episode. Yeah. And
Oh yeah, that's right. You were there.
yeah, it sounded like the plans were to try to pitch this to something like Netflix, or did I mishear that?
Well, eventually we'd like to get this on a streaming service of some sort. What else do we want to do with it? I think it's hard to know. We're kind of all sort of green where this is concerned. But that would be the end goal, to get it on a streaming service and possibly pitch it to Catalyst.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you know, like has the entire series been written right now, and now you've planned out the shooting of it, or are you writing as you're going along?
Well, Brian has written the entire
Okay.
series, yes, but he keeps rewriting and rewriting. But yeah, he has written the entire series. So yeah, it's really has some interesting, twists and turns, and
Yeah. So
paranormal gets involved, psychic, a woman psychic kind of comes on board to help solve crime,
who plays that one?
Charlotte Marie.
Charlotte, okay, that's
Yeah.
what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And so have you been able to read all of the scripts for all of the episodes? Do you know kind of the direction your character takes, or not really?
It's been a while.
Okay.
This has been in the make for a couple of years. I mean, right, Jennifer? I mean, I was trying to remember when we first, was this last spring or 2 springs?
Yeah, so we shot it a year ago. When I was brought on, we were doing kind of the meeting with all the actors and crew and stuff, getting to know each other and stuff before we actually shot.
I mean, it's really taken
So
some time.
Yeah, so I wasn't involved in the process before that.
Right.
More of the pre-production stuff. I just came on during
Yeah.
production. It was like, okay, here you go. Do that. So I know you guys were, doing a lot of pre-production and planning
Yeah.
long before I came on.
And I have read it once, but who knows? It could change. So I'm not counting on it, but I have an idea of where it goes. We'll see if it stays in that direction.
So having sort of an idea of where it goes, what is your preparation process for going into, the next shoot? Yeah. And then this character in particular, but even just generally you going into a new performance, what is your preparation kind of like?
Typically what I do is I read the script over and over and over and over and over. That's the first thing I do. And then, I go in and I memorize usually by paragraphs. And then I start working on my character. I have an idea of how I want her to be portrayed. I mean, she is a badass. She's, she's uses a lot of pills, a lot of opioids. And she's trying to cope with the loss of her husband, and I can relate to that.
Yeah.
So it's not too big of a stretch going there.
She's a flawed but very likable character, which I feel.
You think she's likable?
I do. I like
Do
her.
you?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
All right.
So
yeah.
Is that hard as an actor when there's very personal ties to a role that really mean a lot to you, to bring that into the performance and be that vulnerable?
No, actually, it makes it a little bit easier, I think. I mean, if you can relate to the character, and if you can, experience what that character has gone through, and you can pull from it, I think it actually makes it more meaningful and more authentic. So, yeah, something that you can, I can relate to. I would love the opportunity to be in a period piece.
Oh.
I think that would be fun. I don't think there's a lot of people that are making period films.
Yeah, I think period films are hard because you do need kind of a bigger budget if you really want it to be like reflective of time. But yeah,
that would be on my bucket list. For sure.
What kind of period would you?
1800s, 1900s. I think that would be fun.
Yeah.
But
we just did a period piece for last year's Z-Fest.
Oh, did you?
Sort of.
Yeah. Well, early 1700s.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, the Dual Tree. Did you see the Dual Tree?
I didn't see it. No.
Yeah, Jesse Griffith was in it.
Well, that was your film. You produced that film, didn't you?
I did. I produced it. Yeah, we had a great time just trying to, find the correct costumes. And Jesse was very specific about having it be perfect. It had to be exact to that particular date. So, yeah, we had a great time doing that. But it's tough. It is. And I mean, we only had a few characters, so
yeah.
We didn't need like a huge wardrobe, but it definitely takes some time and research.
Yeah, there's a few costumers in the cities. I think that you could always call on,
but as an actress who you said like 40 plus projects you've done at this point, you obviously have experience acting on stage in front of the camera. For a new actress coming into it, really wanting to get involved with acting, like what advice would you give them?
I would tell them to take classes, lots and lots and lots of classes. Bill Cooper is a great instructor from the beginning actor. He's really, really good. That's who I started with for commercial work and for film. And then I would say audition, for student films. There's a lot of students out there looking for actors. And I would also tell them to join Twin Cities Cinematics on Facebook, because that is where you're going to find a lot of the auditions. But really just a lot of classes to really hone your skills and network. Show up, look at, some networking. A lot of actors get together and network, or audition for some of the film festivals, like the 48 Hours, the 50/50. If you can, just try to get as much experience as possible.
Cool. So. Yeah. I think it's sort of tough, or maybe it wasn't for you, but especially because there's so many actors out there. Like I just know from casting my own project, like there's so many people in this film scene that I want to work with. How do you stand out?
That is a good question. That is a really, really good question. It takes a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I think you have to, a lot of it is who you know as well. You've got to get to know the community. You know, when I first started doing theater, I didn't know anybody in theater, and now it's kind of refreshing to go to an audition and know the actors, you know, that are involved in that community. But I felt like an outsider for a really long time in theater. And even in film, you know, for a long time, I felt like a novice. And, you know, it takes time. But I don't, you know, Jennifer, what would you say? How do you stand out?
Yeah, that is a really interesting question. I personally had to create my own projects. Like I just felt like, you know, a lot of the scripts that you read, a lot of the roles that are out there just don't really give you the opportunity to do much with it or stand out or like even a way to get in that door. So I feel like if you start writing your own characters and creating your own work, that's a really good way to stand out and to show what you have. The only other way you're going to stand out is if you're in a project like a film festival, so people can see your work, you know, and then they'll get some idea, as to who you are. But I think so many times it's not even about your skills, your acting. It's, do you fit the character? You know, are you the right fit? You know, when you're trying to put together, you know, an ensemble, I think it's like, okay, because I was behind the scenes at one time trying to figure out, you know, who we're going to cast when I was in the film Silver Blue. And, you know, there was a couple of actors that really stood out, but there was one actress that fit the role so much more than anybody else. So it isn't always about your acting skills. So, I mean, anyone that gets into this industry, I think you have to be tough and just know that there's going to be a lot of rejection. Yeah,
because it also kind of plays into what you were saying about how you don't necessarily get a lot of choice in your roles. And so, you know, the roles that may come your way don't really offer the platform for you to really give a standout performance just because they're supporting or they're not written particularly, or, you know, with any kind of particular complexity or nuance. So, yeah, I mean, is that part of the struggle too? Is just like you take what you're given, and oftentimes what you're given is not really...
I'm trying to think. That's a good question. Alex, let's see. I don't ever look at it like I take what I'm given, because I have a choice. You know, I can always say, no, this doesn't feel right for me. And I've done that. I've done that many times. But typically I won't even audition for a project or be asked, audition for a project, let's go there first. Unless I don't have, if it doesn't interest me, I won't even audition for it. And I have auditioned for something, then said I was interested, and then got the script and realized, no, I'm not right for this. This isn't for me. But if I've been asked to participate, usually somebody will say to me, you know, I think, you know, this, you're who I had in mind for this. That has happened, and usually it's been right on the money. But yeah, there's some times where you're given a role or you accept a role and it's not, you know, a lead role, or there's not a lot of arc to your character, but you do the best you can.
Yeah. Are there any roles, or not even necessarily roles, but just experiences on set that you've had that you found particularly fun or, you know, like a great experience to be a part of? And why was it that?
That is a good question. Let's see. Well, when I look back on a feature that I did, and I was one of the lead characters, it was just a lot of fun. It wasn't just one day of filming or one weekend. You know, some of it was done at my home. It was done other places. It was over the course of, I think, a few weeks. It was just fun getting to know everybody. You know, everyone is your friend, and you get to joke around behind the scenes, and then you have to get into character. And so, and in this particular case, I worked with somebody that I know, and I felt like we had really good chemistry. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I've never really had a bad experience working on set. Everybody seems to be, even some of the student films that I think about way back when, everybody seems to be really professional. You know, I haven't, like I said, have not had a bad experience.
Okay.
So,
yeah. Well, I mean, probably there's certain directors or other actors you've worked with where you feel like you have had better chemistry. I'm assuming. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you just get along with everybody because you're Ellen.
I just get along with everybody. I love everybody.
Now she's playing a character.
Yes.
But like, it's kind of interesting to hear. Like, I'll hear some actors say, "Yeah, this was my favorite performance that I've ever done, but it was horrible being on set, and I hated the director."
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You heard that?
Yeah, and like they separate the experience of being a part of the film from the actual quality of the performance. And I've often wondered, like, do those go in tandem? Like, you feel like you give a better performance when you really feel comfortable and have chemistry with people, or is it not that? Is it based entirely on something individual?
I think when you enjoy the people you're working with and the writer, director, everybody who's on set, and you're comfortable with them and you get along, I think you're going to have a better performance than not. Because I think you could, I'm only, what do I know? Because I haven't experienced that. But I would imagine if, maybe I'm just a Pollyanna. I don't know. But if you, I would think that if you're working on set and you're not liking your partner, there'd be a lot of tension, and you'd probably be able to feel that in the room.
Which could work depending on the role.
Yeah, depending on the role. That's true. Yeah. But I feel lucky. I haven't experienced that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got to be harder on you next time I use you then.
Yes, be hard on me. Make me hate you, Alex. Yeah. Make me cry. I've had when I've taken some classes, that's when I've really, well, I'm not going to mention who, but I've been a little insecure at times and felt uncomfortable and wanted to cry and
But have you learned from that too? Like, even in the moments where it was super stressful and uncomfortable, you got something out of it?
I think sometimes it's because either I was over prepared or under prepared. I wasn't in the moment. Cynthia Urick always talks about being in the moment. You have to be organic. You have to be in the moment no matter what you're doing. And I think in this particular instant, I was overly prepared. I think I said my line, I don't know. He caught on right away. That it wasn't organic. And I think my excuse is, I had my dog had passed the night before, and I went into class and I had to do this scene, and I just I tried to, I figured it out exactly how I was going to do it, and I just did it, and I wasn't really feeling it. So
does that happen for actors, where something will happen in your personal life that really sort of messes with your ability to then engage with whatever it is you do, whatever shoot you're on. Because I know you said, well, there's some tragedies that really help in your performance because then you can pull from that. But if a tragedy or something like that is too fresh,
Oh, if it's too close to home. Yeah, I was taking, when my mom passed, I was taking a Meisner class, and I dropped out immediately. There's no way, I was devastated, dropped out of this class, and I really did not get back into acting, like I mentioned, until 2014. So it was
because of that loss.
I just didn't have the desire. Yeah. It was just I did commercial work. I did some commercial work during that period of time, but yeah, I had no interest.
See, that's kind of an interesting thing to me too, is like how you go through phases where you're like really passionate about what you're doing. Like this has even happened with me, especially as a writer, less about it, less as a director, because typically if I get excited about something as the writer, I get excited about it as the director too. But like there'll just be moments where like I'll start a script and I'm 20 pages in and then I just lose all kind of motivation to go do it. And it's kind of interesting how that works in any art form, of just like you get in these moments where you're just not there. You're just, you don't want to go do it,
Well, I can say pre-COVID, I thought about I was obsessed with acting. I thought about it 24/7, and if I didn't get a part, I was extremely upset, and I took it personally, and it was too much. And my husband would say to me, if you're going to have to realize you're going to get a lot of no's, and if you can't take it, get out. You've got to stop doing this. You can't do this to yourself, or change your attitude. And then it wasn't until COVID, when no one was acting, and I was able to get involved in other things and find other interests. And, that was like a couple years, was it, when we weren't doing a lot? And then once I got back into it again, I had a whole different perspective on it. I didn't think about it 24/7. It wasn't the be all end all. I still love it. I mean, I'm extremely passionate about it. If I could do this full time, I would. But that isn't reasonable. But at least during that period, those 2 years, it just made me realize, if you don't get a role, it's okay. It wasn't meant to be.
Yeah.
It wasn't yours to begin with. And, I can just relax about it a little bit more.
Yeah, I feel like especially for actors, there's a lot more no's than, like, nobody's going to say no to me if I write a script and decide to direct it and want to put myself in it,
Right.
Or produce
like
something
you
myself.
recently did.
Yeah. Now I've learned my lesson not to put myself too much in stuff unless it's, like not far removed from my personality.
Yeah.
And typically
you could stretch. You could.
Yeah, I mean, like you said something like a period piece. I just think about myself in a period piece, and that would not go over well. But like, yeah, like, deadpan comedy stuff I can do.
Oh, you're so good at that.
But yeah, beyond that, if I'm really trying to make something dramatic, I generally don't put myself in it anymore. But yeah, I feel like for actors, you're kind of, you do the auditions, and then there are a lot more no's that you get than somebody who, say, self-funds and self-produces their own stuff, where you're not going to get somebody saying no to you. So.
I've got a couple auditions that are coming up for theater, and I'm debating, if I do this one, it's out in Hudson, and I know there's going to be some performances, or not performances, but rehearsals that I would miss, and I know that's gonna probably go against me. So it's like, oh, do I even? But I don't know. I think I just want to audition just for the sake of auditioning. So it's always good to practice, so, but yeah, who knows?
Is it at the Phipps Theater?
It is.
Yeah, that's a really nice theater. Well, if you do, you can come visit me because I'm close by.
Are you?
Yeah.
Stillwater.
Yeah.
I grew up in
yeah.
Stillwater.
Oh, you
too,
did?
So, yeah, I go there frequently.
Yeah. Yeah. I would. I will. I'll take you up on that if I get the role. But you never know. You never know.
Yeah. So, like, I tend to think, because I have tried to act, and then, you know, depending on what the project was, it was more successful than other times. But I feel like, do you view a character as like this is something I've thought a lot about, is so you have the character that you read in the script, and the way I look at it is, as an actor, you can either bring the character to you by tying yourself personally into the character, or you can view it as an entirely separate entity and basically switch your mind to be this character.
Never.
Removed from your personal experience. You've
Never do it like that. No. I always bring the character to me.
Okay.
I mean, there's a part of me in every one of the characters
Okay.
that I play. Yeah, you know, you want to be the character.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to be, well, how else would you explain it? Yeah, you want to bring a part of yourself
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
the character.
'Cause
And not look at it as a separate entity.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't even know how I would do that.
Because I've gotten into this argument with Jennifer in the past, where we're talking about the differences between the way women act in their roles and approach their roles versus the way men approach their roles.
Oh, really? You think there's a difference?
I do. And this is why I consistently make my protagonists female characters and women characters, is because I think women tend to bring the role to them and infuse their personal experience, which adds a level of emotional complexity, just inherent emotional complexity to the role, versus men who really view it as performative and something else that they're going to and embodying, which is why you see a lot of men will do, like, I'm thinking about macro level now, Hollywood stuff, where
Mm-hmm.
like actors will transform physically for a role, or something like that, like a Daniel Day-Lewis or Robert
he does
De
that
Niro.
a lot.
Yeah,
Yes,
and they
where
like
he's-
transform themselves physically to be an entirely separate entity from themselves.
But I'm sure they're still bringing the character to them. They're just going to another level. You know, like Daniel Day-Lewis, I don't remember what that film was where he lost all that weight and he was like literally skin and bones. Do you remember the movie?
Well, I remember Christian
Are you
Bale
talking
did it in The
about Christian
Machinist.
Bale?
Oh, maybe you're right.
Christian Bale,
Christian
Machinist,
Bale.
yeah.
I'm sorry, I got that wrong. Yeah, Christian Bale did it.
Yeah.
And I think that's just going to another level. But they're good actors, so you know that there's got to be a
Yeah.
part of them.
But to me, is that acting then? Like, because it's not an act. If you physically lose all this weight, it's like it's not really an act anymore, because you're not. I don't want to use the
it's your. I think for that role, I don't remember the film, but he.
The Machinist.
Yeah, do you remember what it was about?
I don't remember specifically what it was about. I
Yeah.
just remember.
Do
the
you remember,
performance.
Jennifer?
I do, yeah. So he played a character you don't find out until the end, spoiler alert, that he had actually killed somebody in a car accident.
Yeah,
and it was
that's what-
making
yeah.
him so physically ill, because he was just traumatized over it. Like the guilt. The
Mhm.
guilt was literally killing him. And so that's why it was so important to show him, you know, becoming emaciated, because, you know, just to show what, you know, that kind of guilt that he had
Right.
lived with had done to his body. So, I mean, I feel it was very important for him
I do
to
too.
lose all of that weight. And honestly, I don't remember us arguing over this.
Well, we
Alex.
just
I mean,
argued about this at
well, It wasn't an argument. We have had our, I would say, disagreements. Wasn't really an argument.
Well,
But-
yeah, I mean, you're splitting hairs.
I don't know if it's a man, if it's necessarily a man-woman thing. I just think some people, let's just say some people, I don't know, maybe you've seen more of this, but I think some people just don't know how to be organic. They don't know how to deliver a performance with a part of their soul. And other people are just reading lines and memorizing, and they're not in the moment. They're not.
Well, because
And you feel though that women, that actresses are more authentic in that sense than men are, and
I just think their performances. There's a performative aspect, but there's also a sort of an aspect that's left contained inside them that you don't really see in the moment until you watch it back. And so, for example, like Dolwa, your performance, Jennifer's performance, Nadia's performance, Janet's performance, like when I was editing it, I was
so moved.
Well, I was watching these performances back, and I don't know, maybe this is just sort of a unique thing to me as a director, but like the most impressive moments weren't in the saying of a full line. It was actually a lot in the moments where you're not saying anything, where like I'm watching you and you do something with your body language. It could be as small as like a shifting of the eyes, a movement of the head, where I'm like, I don't know why they did that, but it was super cool, and it was like a natural response that is interesting, that I don't understand, that was really cool to see.
That's really listening to your scene partner, and it just comes naturally. I know for me, I think I communicate a lot, with my eyes, with my face, with my hands. Use my hands too much, but yeah, it's just really listening.
Yeah, well, but to me, that separates female performances from male. There's not a male performance I've seen where I've felt the same way, where I look at something and I say, "Oh, that was a unique response that I don't really understand why they did it, but it was a natural response." Like, I understand everything a male actor is doing, why they respond a certain way, why they have a certain facial expression, and maybe it's just literally a difference in perspective of I'm not a woman, so I don't understand how things are received. But to me, the best performances of all time are like Isabelle Huppert and The Piano Teacher, Laura Dern in Inland Empire, B.B. Anderson in Persona. And like these performances where there's not like
a lot of dialogue, it's just all in the facial
and
expressions.
they're not losing a bunch of weight for it or gaining a bunch of weight, and these somewhat superficial things. To me, it's all in like the internal responses, the moments that you see where they're not saying lines, but they're actually reacting. Like, to me,
Right.
that's where I'm really like, okay, there's a complexity and nuance there that goes deeper
Absolutely.
than just the outside.
Insane lines.
Yeah.
Those people that are not doing that need to get back to class. They do.
But yeah, it's just interesting. Maybe it's not a man-woman thing, and I'm just wrong.
I think,
about
yeah,
that,
I think
but
it could be just in general if people haven't had a lot of experience or just are not in the moment, and they're not just. I've said that 100 times already, but
and some people just aren't very expressive.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
yeah, that's true.
Like, some actors, if they have a lot of lines and they can say their lines well, and perform that way, they're really good. But then when you see them in a role where they don't really have much to say, and it all has to be emotion and facial expression, body language,
Absolutely.
and it's just not there. You're just looking at it's boring. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, you have to react. If somebody's talking, what would you do in real life? You know, you're listening to me right now. You're nodding. You know, you seem like you're really engaged in what I'm saying.
I am so engaged. I'm so engaged.
Yes.
How
So that is what you do when you're really listening. You react. You don't just, if you're talking, I'm not going to be looking around the room and waiting for my next line. I'm going to look at you and I'm going to react to what you're saying to me. And I would hope that that would come across on, or come across with,
Yeah.
on the camera, whatever.
Because
Cut
it's
that part out.
Yeah, but it's just.
Cut that part out.
Yeah, so I just find that kind of interesting, and like your performance in Dalwa too. It's like, you know, where I really fell in love with your performance is when like M.A. I'm not going to say her last name right, so I'm not even going to try. But you know M.A.
I know M.A.
Yeah. When she's like trying to be passively, or she's just being dismissive of Janet's character, and you're sitting there and you agree with M.A. and your expression is like, okay, so how do we say this in an unsubtle way? And you can just tell that like the thinking of the character is the thinking that you're actually doing as the actor, and it's coming out in your face and your performance. And so I know there's at least a couple times where it's Janet and M.A. talking, but I still cut to you to see the facial expression and the body language that you have reacting to it. And to me, those are my favorite moments in performances is when that happens.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Oh, now I'm all warm and fuzzy inside.
But yeah, that's really insightful and interesting to hear as somebody who's not an actor mainly. So, but yeah, cool. So we've covered a lot of topics,
Yes,
and
we have.
yeah, it's been a really interesting conversation. So I just want to thank you for coming on and sitting down with me.
It's been fun.
And yeah, I look forward to seeing you in other projects and in other events.
Great. Me too.
Me too.
All right, so that is actress Ellen Engelson, fantastic actress. Check out some of the upcoming projects she said, and we'll see you next time on Film Network.